Previously on Real Men, Real Talk Live.
You know, I can't speak for you, but I will speak for myself. Is that I think when I started on my own journey of believing that it was possible that I can reverse medical conditions, and in doing so, reverse the aging process, I truly had to, for the first time in my life, embrace the true essence of patience. It was simple, not easy, because I wasn't accustomed to that. I was always so accustomed to hurry up and get it done. I was always looking at the time. I was looking at the watch and the clock. But what I began to understand was that the true essence of patience, for me at least, was tapping into faith, believing that it was possible. But I wasn't going to see results on my time. I was going to see results on divine time. Viewers, welcome back to Real
Men.
Real
Talk.
Welcome back to Real Men Real Talk Live. This week, I am excited to introduce my co-hosts. We have Evis, we have Jay Riddy, and we have Jeff Fasano. Jeff, it's good to see you tonight, coming up vertical after just a couple of days of being under the weather with, something from the past that came back into the present. But I wonder, in tonight's episode 166, as we welcome our viewers back, thank you for joining us this evening. If you should hear something that you like or love, please share it out into the community. And we invite you to share comments along the way in flow. Any questions that come up, we'll do our best to answer as many of them as we can in tonight's episode, which is all about becoming a conscious observer in your own life. And Ev, since you're in the top shelf tonight, why don't you kick us off, get us hot, light us up, and break it down for us. What does it mean to become the conscious observer in your own life?
Damn, we're on a deep show tonight, my brothers and sisters. But before I dive in, I'd just like to thank all my brothers here in the land down under, all you guys across the other side of the pond that are always looking out and supporting what we do here on Real Men Real Talk Live. And we really appreciate if you can share it out into your streams, into your collective, the way we can get into this algorithm and really share an important message. No different from a message tonight is becoming the conscious observer within your life, brothers and sisters. Many of us, where it's quite easily, I think, in today's society, that we identify ourselves with our roles of who we turn up into the 3D reality, so to speak. Whether you're mum, whether you're dad, whether you're brother, sister, uncle, auntie, your job, profession, whatever it may be. But there's a deeper side of you, my brothers and sisters. And for me, it's been a journey on being able to unlock that particular part of who we are. Understanding on a deeper inner understanding, that particular being, that particular essence, that particular way of life called the observer. The observer, to me, my brothers and sisters, after I went on a lot of introspection and self-discovery on my journey, started to come up, and really I had to ask myself, in my own reality, was that reflection truly the observer to me? Were my habits at that particular time that I was doing the introspective work aligned to what I feel is of the observer? Was the way my mindset was, my thoughts, my words that I was speaking, were they connected and aligned to this observer? And most importantly, how I was feeling within my life. When we go on this inner journey and really start to become aware of this particular essence that we call the observer within our life, it gives us a lot more opportunities within our life, particularly down here, like I said, in the physical or the 3D reality. It allows us to be living more in possibilities as opposed to the limitations within our life. So for me tonight, I just want to share a little bit about the personal journey and how I've been able to bring that observer within my life conscious, how I can now really be able to emanate who I am as the higher self within my life versus the ego that really is attached to this external environment that doesn't allow us to really be the observer and be more conscious to an awareness that allows us to live our best possible potential. So yeah, man, let's dive in, brothers. This is another deep show. Jeff Fonsano, how you feeling there? What's the observer to you?
What popped into my head right away is when we're talking about a conscious observer in our life, and excuse me, viewers, if this may seem a little quote unquote elitist, but to get to the place I feel to become a conscious observer, we really have got to we have got to have done X amount of time of work, inner work, to get to that place of consciousness and awareness of our habits, patterns, rituals, and behaviors, so we can begin to observe ourselves. When we first start doing this work, we're muddled in the old stuff, and usually when we begin this work, it takes others outside of us to be the observer of our behaviors. So if you're working with a counselor in therapy, a coach, or whatever, and you're beginning the work, and you're not quite sure what's happening in your life, it takes that coach, that counselor, that therapist to bring out and observe these behaviors that they see, bring that to our attention. But as we go through that process, go into a deeper process of doing that, then we could eventually, as we release those old behaviors, those habits, patterns, and rituals, we then could become that conscious observer of our own life. Do we move into blind spots and roadblocks? Yes. And that may take another person to say, hey, I see this. And are we open to listen to others who are observing us in neutrality to bring things to our attention? But I really think we begin this process, and you guys can refute it if you want to, but it takes a while, I think, to get to the place to be our own conscious observer.
I want to try something real quick, and sort of on the back of that statement, Jeff, because I think what we haven't been taught is how to listen and how to watch. And we probably, I'll state it in the I kept myself so busy in my 20s and 30s that I never left any time to listen to what parts of me maybe have wanted to observe self. So I want to try and I've never done this before. This just popped in my brain. We're all so beautifully in flow on this show, and we never plan any of this. I hope you guys know that we hit go and we just flow all of this. So I'm going to go with the flow here in the moment, and I would really love for you all to close your eyes for a second. And if you're new to the show, you don't know us, trust me for a minute, and go along with this. So close your eyes. I'm going to do it too. Deep breath in and a deep breath out. Now, we're going to hold this space of stillness, of peace, of calm. Let go any worries, doubts of the day. Let everything outside of you melt away for a moment. This is time to just check in with us. All right. Now I want that doubting self to come up. What is the doubt and fear in your life, that part of you that's inside of you? What does it have to say? What is it scared of? And whose voice is that? Is it even yours? Are these doubts passed down to you?
Mhm.
Now I want you to feel that confident self in you. When you are jamming out to a great tune or cranking stuff out at work, or you're mega productive at home, that confident self. What does that self want to tell you right now? Does that self want to come out and play more? What do they need to come out and be confident and play? And then I want you to listen to your soft self, the loving self, the caring self, and sometimes can be the needy self, that emotional you. What does that self need right now? What would make that self feel good? And what are moments you can create for that self? Now I want you to take a deep breath in and back out again. And we're going to come back to this moment. And this is a small example of what I've been doing a lot lately. There are parts in us, beautiful, beautiful parts, and they all have needs, and they all have wants, and they can all come out and play. And we can give these parts of ourselves different moments, but we got to listen, and we got to hear what they're saying, and we got to honor that. And this is a small example of observing self.
All right, we can wrap it up.
That is the show, brother.
Hey, are we going to share what came up for us?
There you go.
Sure.
There's the show.
Sure.
Man.
You want to do a round
Jay?
table?
Let's go around. Jay the Rothman, hit us off.
What are you afraid of, Jay?
What's
Afraid of?
The
Afraid
question-
of?
The
What does
question was
confident self need, and what does your emotional self need in this moment?
Before we go there, as I stall, I want to invite our viewers to drop it in the comments if you actually participated in this guided meditation of sorts that Jay Ritty just shared with us. What came up for you? It's a beautiful experience because most of us are not paying attention to the inner voice. We're only living in it. I'm going to repeat that. Josh said it differently. He said, "Are you listening?" But it's the same thing as we're not paying attention, in fact, to what that inner voice is saying, sharing, or even at times trying to really get our attention by screaming. And sometimes it comes through our emotional relationship with self. Sometimes it comes through our physical relationship with ourselves. When I'm talking about physical, it can come through pain, physical pain. It can come through medical conditions that just out of nowhere, they show up. All of a sudden, we have a diagnosis and a prognosis. And whether it's coming through the emotional, mental, physical, or spiritual side of self, it clearly is here to teach us and show us that we're missing it. We're not aware of it. We're not seeing it. We're not consciously living it. We're just in it. And that's the pain that many of us choose to live in. We choose to live in the pain of it rather than step outside of it, almost in a way where we levitate or elevate outside of ourselves. And we're going to share some tips, tricks, and tools in this episode of tonight, 166, on how we can get there. How we can learn how to practice stepping outside of ourselves so we can almost see ourselves in that moment, in flow, and experiencing the thoughts, the patterns, and the behaviors that come forward from what I call, instead of being a conscious observer, how many of us are actually sleepwalking through our life?
All right, Jay, what came up for you?
Well, I tell you what came up for me is that I've been practicing this now for a few solid years of becoming and being a conscious observer. So, for me tonight, it was more of the old self, the old younger self that would come in
Mhm.
of fears around: am I enough? Am I worthy? Am I lovable? Do I matter?
Hmm.
And so I was in it, but also having practiced day in and day out, truly learning how to become that conscious observer. Um, and there's pieces of it, there's techniques of it. For example, much of the time when we go to let's say fear or what we're scared of, we're not in the past, we're not in the present. We've already leaped into what I call a future trip. We're in the future.
Mhm.
We're thinking about not today, but tomorrow, next year, next month. Look, I'm 62 years old. If I want to slip into the future and think about where am I going to be in 10 years from now, I can go into a state of fear. Is my health going to be okay? Am I going to be living the same quality of physical life that I can live today? Or am I going to be a sick 72-year-old if I'm still alive? So I guess to answer your question, that would be it, from the fear perspective. From what else do you want to hear from me, Fasano?
No, go ahead. What were the other, name them, Josh?
The emotional. What does
the-
the emotional self need? What is the fear coming up in you, and what does your confident best self need
yeah.
or want
Yeah. Well, I could tell you that the
to do
confidence
more of?
best, the confident best self is all about mindset. It's all about understanding that it's the mind that's going to hijack us. The mind is what's going to bring us down into that deep rabbit hole of self-deprecating, self-sabotaging thoughts that will turn into our perspective, which will turn into our reality. So when we understand the power of the mind, and that's where tonight's show is about. And next week, we're going to jump into the next level ascension of the power of the mind, and how the power of the mind can reverse significant diseases in our life as men and women. And we're going to have a special guest coming in next week that's going to share that with us.
We already have a next week's show.
Yeah.
We didn't even do our production meeting yet.
It don't
And
matter.
we haven't
I leave-
finished this show. That could be
I-
next week's show
Yeah,
or
well-
last week's show or a show 3 weeks from now.
It's called, we're doing a little promo here. But in any event,
Well,
I
hold
wanna-
on, Jay. I'm going to keep
Yeah.
you in the hot seat for a second because you just still didn't answer the question.
Right.
What does that confident self need or want right now?
he needs me to show up. That's it. He doesn't need anyone else to show up for him. He needs me to show up as my higher self, coming from my heart, because my heart knows the truth. Why is that, Josh? Because the wisdom resides in the heart of the soul. It's the egoic mind that brings us to those fearful moments of self-doubt. And all that, the egoic mind is endorsing the child within, back to the child within. That's actually living in those old patterns of self-confidence, self-doubt. So yeah, it's truly becoming a conscious observer for me. Truly is about paying attention to who's showing up in a moment. Is my egoic mind? Is it my child within, or is it my higher self? So hopefully I've answered your question. Ev, what are you making of all this amazing talk this evening?
Well, I want to share what came up for me, but go ahead, Ev.
Are you sure, Jeff?
Oh, I'm telling you that. I'm telling you what I'm going to ask Josh to do is record that and send it to me. That was so powerful for me right now. It brought me right back to reality in such a way. When I first went in, the voice that I was hearing, because right now there's nothing going on in my life right now. I am in a pause. I'm in a transition. I'm transitioning so much into a whole different me on so many levels. And there's nothing going on in my world right now. And so when that happens as an artist, and you can talk to any artist you want to, you're going, oh man, when's the next booking coming? You know, whoa. So that's been happening to me lately. And I get caught up in that little cycle, and it brings me back to this place that I'll never have enough. Josh, when I first went in, and that's what I started hearing. I won't have enough. I won't have enough. I won't have enough. So I'm going into this kind of survival consciousness. And I knew I was doing that, but with this meditation, I went into that, and then I went, oh, wow. And then what was the second part of that? Because I was feeling that, and then I realized, okay, you know, you have enough. And my adult came in, and what was the second part of it, Josh? It was beautiful.
It was the fears. Whose voices are those?
Right.
Then it was your confident self.
Yeah, the fears was I won't have enough, because there's, you know, I'm not working right now. There's no photo shoots. There's nothing. You know, I haven't sold any prints or anything like that. It's just one of those periods and Josh, we've all experienced this, especially as artists, where there's a nothing going on. And no matter what I do or we do with anything, it's just, you know, it's one of those periods. And in those periods in time that are all based in our soul plan, it brings up stuff. So it was bringing up there's not enough. There's not enough. There's not enough. And then the fear was, I'm not going to have enough money. The fear was, I'm not going to have enough money to pay my rent. And it's just, and I knew I was doing this, but then at the end, it brought me back to reality, and the adult me came in and said, hold on. You've been through this before. You've been through all of this in your life before. Come back to reality and nurture those parts of yourself, those voices. And I wouldn't say they were voices, but what came up was mom and dad. The fear of dad that there will never be enough. My father got ulcers over that. It was pretty, I'm telling you, dude, that was, I'm going to ask you to bottle it, record it, put it into an MP4 and start selling it, because that was beautiful and something that I needed right in this very moment in time.
Beautiful.
And that's why we do Real Men, Real Talk Live.
There you go. So let me ask you this, Jeff, and then we're going to jump into give Evis a moment here. What's the lesson from this exchange right here, right now? What'd you learn?
What did I learn? To remember. What Josh's meditation did, I remembered, because I needed to remember all of what we just did. I've done that so many times in my life, but sometimes we hit a blind spot, like I said earlier. And I was like, whoa, I'm in this place, but I remembered, hey, I'll be fine.
Beautiful.
Looking at all of what is happening in my life, what has happened the last couple of months. And as Evis said in last week's show, sometimes we get into these pauses, and how do we prepare ourselves as doors close? New doors are going to open. And on the other side of those new doors, it's going to be a new canvas to paint our aspects of our new life with.
Beautiful.
How are we preparing for that?
Ev, what are you making of it?
Magic
Brothers. What came forward for you?
Yeah, man, like I said at the start, before we were in the green room, you know, like we always look forward for a quick breath session before we dive in to the show. But we didn't actually get one. We actually got a surprise and got it during the show, which is even more special. And just even in that, you know, little guided meditation our brother done for us, which was magic, brother. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Straight away, I said to the guys before the show, I was pretty tired this week, man. I'm not going to lie. To be honest, I found myself in that meditation, and there was one whisper, and that one whisper was saying rest. And it was the inner child saying rest. because that part of myself, and this is where it gets deep, brothers and sisters, as an overachiever, seeing my parents really look to achieve within what they were doing within their life, I always took that on, that I had to be at that same potential, at that same standard. And so I've been through this part of myself many times through my life. And when I do see it creeping up, that's when I do have to hit the switch and ask myself, is it truly aligned to the purest form of who I am? That higher self. You know, what was the fear of me not performing at that highest level again? Well, it was me, very similar to what Jeff's saying, not feeling enough if I didn't. So we always have to remind ourselves to have these pauses. We always have to remind ourselves who that purest form is. And to me, when we can connect to that higher self, some call the oversoul, I look at it as the observer. Or if you've really been able to integrate it into your own being, the inner child at its healed form, then that will allow you to live in your purest form and connect back to what you truly believe in. Not what your parents passed down, not what your coaches, aunties, uncles passed down, but it's so vital. And like I said, man, it crept up again this week, and I've done this work plenty of times. Like we're saying, we can still see the residue creep in. But the first go-to for me is diving into those emotions, diving into those fears, and not distracting myself with my work or any other distractions outside of myself, the numbing, whatever it may be, and going into that creative space. And you know what? I'm going to acknowledge some of those emotions that just come up in that small meditation our brother done for us, because it's residue. It's not me in my purest form, brothers and sisters.
Great.
Amen.
That is
Amen, Ev.
that is a fantastic description of it. For me personally, what came up was residue.
Residue. I like
Residue.
that one. Yeah.
And that's why we need to do what our brother done for us daily.
Go ahead, Josh.
And I think for me, what I didn't, that stillness, that pause that you're talking about, we're all talking about, was scary. Like to sit with your emotions for a second and ask those questions. Like there's discomfort there sometimes, or often, or always. But what I had to remind myself was that I'm okay to sit in discomfort. It's okay. It's okay to be uncomfortable, but be okay. You can feel these things and you don't have to, like Ev was saying, numb, distract, work stuff, push it aside. The whole point of being a conscious observer is observing emotions are waves. You will never be stuck in one forever. And I think that's our biggest fear, is when we have these uncomfortable feelings, we want them to go away, right? Of course we like to feel better, but it's okay to sit with it and say, what do you have to tell me? It's coming up for a reason. There's a message in there, and we can take that message and break it apart and peel the layers back and find the gold inside, find what our insides, what our soul is desperately wanting or needing, and it hasn't been heard your whole life. Potentially it wasn't for me. I just started listening within the last few years too, Jay. So yeah, there's a lot they have to say, and it's okay to be uncomfortable. In moments of silence.
You know what I love about the deep dive tonight is that we're speaking our truths, and that's why I love the show, because we show up and we're on this journey together, all of us, just not the four of us in a studio here tonight. But I will share before we segue into our next part of tonight's episode, is that when I find myself in that lull, whether it be the emotional whatever's going on in my life, whatever it is, that is when a lot of us tend to retreat. That is when I say retreat. Now, there's a difference between pause, there's a difference between retreat, and there's a difference between getting busy. Now, how I'm going to break that down is pause is the first step. Have the awareness through pause that you're going through another wave. You're going through another cycle. You're more residues coming up. And we have a choice. We either go under the covers, what I call duvet therapy, and we hide, we isolate. And part of that is picking up or reaching for unhealthy patterns and behaviors that most likely haven't worked for us in the past, but we resort back to the old patterns and behaviors. But the other option is that as soon as you have the awareness as your own conscious observer, that by the grace of God, here I go again, I'm in another cycle, I'm in another wave. The first thing that I do is instead of focusing on what's not working in that moment, I get busy. I get busy with healthy choices. I use that pause. If it's for business, then that for me is my indication that I can ante up my self-care routine.
Mm.
If I don't have a booking to be on a land with a client, then I book myself. I show up on that land and I do the work. Or I get on my bicycle and I just start riding. Not writing, but riding with an R. Sometimes my accent comes through. No apologies here. It is what it is. But in any event, this is the opportunity when we're in that conscious observation of we're not liking how we're feeling. Don't allow yourself to sink down into it. Allow yourself to honor the feelings and emotions, and then parent yourself as your higher self, as your divine self, and make healthy choices to get out of the slump. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's not about pushing for more business. Sometimes it's about opening your heart to do more self-care, connect with more people, maybe reach out to people that you haven't talked to in some time, that used to bring you, some peace, some what I call connection, heart to heart. Connect with other people, connect with yourself, connect with nature. So what I want to do is I want to switch gears. I want to take
before you go, Jay, on a lighter note, you said if it's not working and you're not out there, get busy on yourself. So if I'm not doing any photo shoots, I should then take this period of time of continually taking selfies.
Okay.
Yes,
hey, Jeff, that's your higher selfies.
I've seen your Instagram. You need a lot more selfies, my friend.
Yeah.
A lot. If you're trying to compete with the world right now, you're pretty low on the selfie scale.
Yeah, I like that. Thanks for the humor. That's pretty good coming off of you being under the weather for some time here.
I've had 5 days to think of more jokes.
One-liners.
There you go. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to pivot right now and bring us into what does it look like to become the conscious observer of others in your life, of what I call anything outside of yourself, people, places, and things. What does that look like? How can we embrace that in a healthy way? Because it can get a little slippery and a little slick between what is the difference between being a conscious observer and being a judgmental observer. Who wants to jump on that one?
One of the things that's been popping up for me lately is just that. How in certain instances with other people, I would observe what they're doing, and then I would go into judgment of what they're doing, how they're doing it, their life, whatever. And I just realized that lately. I went, whoa. I don't tell them, I don't say it, I don't write it, but it's there. And I went, wow, that's really really interesting. There's something I need to look at, because if I'm doing that, if that judgment of another comes up, then where am I still judging parts of me that may be whatever they're doing is mirroring back to me? So that's been coming up lately. That's a good one, Jay. That's been coming up for me lately, and I realize I need to change that old behavior.
Yeah, because most likely it's not even yours. We know who it is. It's your
My-
dad's.
No,
No?
Mom.
All right. Well, I knew it was one of the two.
50-50 chance.
Yeah. Well done,
Yeah,
Ed.
it's an important thing, because, I mean, you're talking to like the magic of this mirror consciousness, which really is got a lot to do with the magic mirrors of 5 dimensions in the 5th dimensional realm. So as a conscious observer, what you're saying there, Jay, if you've got that state and high awareness, this is about you actually being able to emanate that opening of your heart in this 5th dimension. When you have opened your heart space and you can truly see yourself through the eyes of another, then, my brothers and sisters, you are looking at our brothers and sisters with nothing but love, compassion, and empathy.
bingo. All right. I think now we're done.
Stop being so damn impatient, Jeff. That was last week's episode on patience, the fine art of patience.
That
If you
was
missed it, viewers, if you missed last week's episode, it's
was a good one.
right here on YouTube. It's archived on Real Men Real Talk Live. It's last week's episode 165. But yeah, what do you make of that, Jay Ritty? How have you tried to embrace being less judgmental of others and embracing the true essence of how to apply the same set of parameters or boundaries around embracing being that conscious observer, the way Evis just so eloquently described it? Where are you at in your own journey of embracing that with other people in your life that you may meet and that you may not first blush, you may go right through
man.
patterns and behaviors?
Hey man, I work in TV. There's a whole cornucopia of people that I have to work with. And for the most part, I'm sort of playfully joking. For the most part, I've had great crews and great people, but there are the outliers out there, the unbalanced people who are reactors and in positions of power and, under stressful situations. The best side of people doesn't always come out. And so the tool that I found best, and I think Ev and Jeff, you both said it, was compassion. Compassion for them. I don't know. I remind myself that I'm unaware of much of this person's life. I only have a small window, and that, I think I also remind myself when I am consciously observing others that we often take things personally because we spend our whole lives with us, right? And we know our insecurities and our things, and we often take triggering moments in the world and turn it into an attack on us. And so I remind myself that I am the meaning maker. I'm the one putting meaning to the stimulus coming into my life. And so I get to choose, and I choose to remind myself that, I don't know what's going on in this person's life. This is probably not about me, even though I'm trying, my insecure emotional self is trying to make it about me, and remind myself of compassion for that person. And that lessens the pain and lessens the blow. And it also takes it off of me, so that I don't spend the second half of my day feeling that I'm untalented or a terrible human being. I mean, of course, if the interaction involved me doing something, then of course I would apologize, if that were warranted. But yeah, those are kind of the 3 things I remind myself of as the observer of others.
I got to tell a quick story that just popped into my head. So there was one Christmas I was spending at my brother's house. And everybody's sitting around the table, dinner. Everybody had dinner, dessert. And there's a whole bunch of people. I will go nameless, my mother included. And all they were doing was talking about other people and criticizing other people. I swear to, I mean, I don't know how this, and I can still hear it. And that's all they were doing. It was a bunch of people sitting there like picking one person, and they would pick on that person. And then another, and that was the conversation. That's what they were doing. And it was so sickening that I left. Said, hey, who wants to drive? As I was living in Manhattan. Hey, who would like to drive me to the train? Oh, are you leaving now? I go, yeah, well, if you're listening to what I'm hearing, you'd want to leave too. I don't know why that popped into my head. And what is that, the old adage, that line, if your conversations consist of talking about others, what kind of life do you have?
Well, that I mean, Jeff, just to be fair, I understand. I heard everything you said, and clearly, we could have made the table bigger, and we could have all sat in that same room together, because I had that same experience. But here's the truth: is that, we don't know what we don't know. When we're in it, and we are a witness as part of it, because let's say we may even be, you weren't your younger self, you weren't a child. It sounds like you were an adult visiting, having this experience, but becoming part of becoming that conscious observer is being able to set a loving boundary and say, no, thank you. I'm not interested in participating in this type of behavior. But we don't have to say that. All we have to say next time is no, thank you. And we don't have to give an excuse or a reason why we're saying no, thank you. Because when we say no, thank you, because we don't want to step into that dense, dark energy, we're actually saying yes to ourselves. Right? And so the gift that you received in that moment, yeah, you were irritated. You were not happy with what you were witnessing. But the gift is that once we are able to clearly see behavior that we are no longer comfortable with behavior that perhaps we were accustomed to living in, experiencing, being a part of at some point in our life, even if we were the children in that home, there's gratitude. We can extrapolate gratitude from that. The gratitude is I'm making a different choice for myself. I don't want to live in that. I don't want to have those type of social evenings. Instead, I want to live in love. I want to live in compassion. I want to live in talking about things that have relevance, not, let's say, putting other people down or making fun of people so that we feel better about ourselves.
Yeah, the what I was so grateful for was getting the 948 back to Manhattan on New Jersey Transit.
How many years ago is that? I'm curious.
I was in my probably my mid 40s.
Okay.
About 20 years ago.
There you go.
But I remember it it hurt. You know, when it hurt so much to listen to these people sit around and talk about people. And the only thing I could think of in that moment was taking out the New Jersey Transit train schedule and knowing the amount of time it took to get from my brother's house to the train station, what train I can get right then and there.
There you go.
I said, hey, I want to get the 948.
So I want to switch gears one more time here, one more pivot. Let's talk about when we're winning. When we have what feels like success. It could be a good day, a high day. You know, on this day, we're riding the surf, we're riding a wave all the way into the shore. And we're not going to fall, we're not going to crash, we're not going to get injured or hurt. In that moment, when we are celebrating, when we're in a good space, let's call it, are you celebrating or observing yourself in a moment as that conscious observer? And if not, why not? And if yes, what is the benefit? Even when we're in a moment of what feels like joy, happiness, even gratitude, what is the benefit, Josh Richa, of showing up as a conscious observer?
Mm. Jay, this is a tough one for me. I'll be honest. Because I've shared it on the show, I'm bipolar. So when I'm feeling great, on top of the world, jamming shit out at work or at home, or I don't get to fully enjoy it because I always have to ask myself, am I manic right now? And that sucks. Think about it. All the times you're feeling your very best in life, having to ask yourself, is this a bad thing? I do get robbed of a bit of joy because of that. But I also have to stay hyper conscious to protect myself. And I won't elaborate too much, but people think bipolar is these swinging moods. It's not. It's the crash after a high. It's when you ramp up and it's that nosedive after that. So I have to bring down my highs so the dip afterwards isn't awful. So that's a very loaded question for me personally, because unfortunately, in my best moments, I always have to ask that question.
Well, here, two things, Josh. One is thank you for being brutally honest and sharing this truth about the relationship with yourself and learning how to have a healthier relationship with yourself in those moments of the pivot, let's call it, or the transition or the shift. But isn't really what tonight's topic is all about is exactly what you just described.
It is.
So whether we have a medical condition or not, whether we have a prognosis or not, even with or without it, becomes a gift for us when to the question that I asked is even when we're celebrating a win, most of the time when we're celebrating, we go into either an egoic celebration and we include the child within us to celebrate. And this is a setup question to an extent, because what I've embraced in my own life over the past 8 years or more now is that even when I have a day filled with pure joy, pure, a good space, let's just call it that, I give myself permission to honor that experience with gratitude, but then I pull back and I take time to ask the questions, even from this win, even from this amazing day, amazing experience. Are there any lessons to learn about myself as that conscious observer of what I just experienced? So I just see it as it's not a negative. I think the condition that you have is actually put you in a great place where you are embracing the true essence of becoming that conscious observer. Because as you just said, I'm going to paraphrase you. You want to make sure that you're not heading towards a massive crash. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it is my gift. It comes with a responsibility, and that responsibility is hyper conscious observing of self, and making sure, I'm not running hot.
There you go.
Yeah.
What do you make of that, Ev?
Yeah, I love that, man, because the biggest thing for me in those states, Jay the Roth man, initially was learning to receive those times of celebration. I used to blow them off like the wind outside here in the land down under. I'd deflect it from me because of that worthiness, that sense of value. So now, exactly like you, Mr. Rothman, I integrate it through gratitude. I don't tell anyone about most of my wins, man. I know there's plenty of evil eyes out there, and it's something that we've got to be aware of as well, my brothers and sisters. But when you can celebrate for yourself and integrate that into your own state of being and wellness, it allows you to create more abundance and prosperity within your own life. So you've got to ask yourself, my brothers and sisters, you as that conscious observer, is that enough for you to be able to celebrate in your own light, your own wins and your own celebrations? Because this human form, this egoic form, there is many downs as there are ups. So it's essential that we must learn to integrate and celebrate our small wins. And they don't have to be massive. It could be as simple as that you got your ass up out of bed today to show up. You made your bed. You got up at a certain time. You got things done that you set out to achieve. No one else, no beliefs that were passed down to you generationally, but for you in your purest form as the conscious observer. Your mind, body, and spirit. That's what you have to celebrate, my brothers and sisters.
Beautiful. What's this bringing up, Jeff?
One of the things that I'm learning with this book that I have out is I'm learning to open my heart to receive the love that comes to me from the book, the things that I've done, the accomplishments that I have over 25 years of doing this, but all the wonderfulness that people are bestowing upon me. And one of the things I've been observing is how Ev just said, I used to just poo-poo it right away. I would go on, I'd hear, wow, the work in here is beautiful. What you said tonight was beautiful. And I would just keep going. What's next? What's next? And now I'm learning slowly to be in the moments of accepting and receiving all of this fantastic stuff that's coming my way. And it's a challenge. It's a challenge. Is it real? The things that come up with it. Because, as Ev said at the very beginning, when we allow our hearts to open, really open to receive love, whatever that is, it could be one of the most terrifying times of our life. Because of all of the feelings that surround that. We let our heart open to start to receive love, and we'll bring up all of the stuff surrounding that. And then being in those moments of vulnerability with your heart open. That's what I'm learning. So now when I hear something, I even catch myself. Like somebody said, I catch myself not even saying, oh, thank you. Because it's just an old thing. Oh yeah, you're doing whatever. Because I never heard it growing up. I don't want to go back. I never even heard anything from mom and dad. Oh, good job, Jeff. Great game. My parents never ever heard it. They never downplayed anything. So a compliment. Wow, that was a great photo shoot, Jeff. It's like, what? That's all very new to me in my life. And what is even more new now is opening my heart and creating a place, which I have been doing for quite some time, and allowing it to land in my heart space, where it is simply an affirmation coming back to me. It's not validating and gratifying myself. It's not validation that I am good. That's what we wanted from mom and dad. When we were 9 and 10 years old, oh, great game. You did this really well. Great report card. We need that young, because that's how we're learning to fortify a sense of self. But now, as we're adults, really what we're allowing our hearts to open to receive. And it's not about the validation. Oh, I must be really good at this if you're telling me I am. No, if we've done the inner work, we're building ourselves up to know how valuable our talents, gifts, and abilities are when we give them. Then we're just opening our heart. So it's a balance of giving and receiving. I said this in a show or last week. When we give the world our talents, gifts, and abilities, because that's what they're there for. We're giving on this show what we've learned through our talents, gifts, and abilities. There needs to be a reciprocation of receiving. So there needs to be this balance of energy. I'm giving to the world my talents, gifts, and abilities as a photographer and artist. Can I open my heart to receive the energy coming back to me? That's all it is, really. It's a balance of giving and receiving. We can give and give and give and give and overgive to prove who we are. But can we open our hearts, feel that vulnerability, and now receive the affirmation of thanks and gratitude for our giving?
What you're describing is embracing the true essence of humbleness, receiving it in the heart. I want to thank you, Jeff, for sharing that. That was a very, very, very powerful moment there. And I probably like you guys, I really didn't know how to receive a positive compliment in that regard. And when I did receive it, of course, it didn't hit here; it hit up here. And today, there are times one of the techniques that I've embraced is that when someone says something that I know is coming from their own appreciation, from their own heart, acknowledging something, many times I'll close my eyes and I'll ask them if they wouldn't mind repeating it to me. Why do I do that? Because I want to make sure that I do receive it here in my heart. And so much of the pain that we as adults live in is many of us are still waiting as the adult child of a parent that may be alive to still acknowledge them, to say something as simple as this: I love you. Something as simple as this: I'm proud of you. Many, many millions and billions of people are still waiting to hear that from their aging parents or parent. And to your point, we have the greatest opportunity to provide those words spoken to our own self. It's okay, with humility, with humbleness, to really take time each day as a conscious observer of really assessing, what did you accomplish today? How did you show up differently today? Who did you touch? What did you say? How did you look at that? Did you connect with anyone eye to eye? Did you ask someone, would you like a hug? And you give them a hug. You hold them. You share your love. That is the gift of becoming a conscious observer. And it's okay to give yourself that hug. Literally, give yourself that hug. And honor that boy, honor that little girl. Honor the part of yourself that feels like crap that day. And let that part of yourself know how proud you are in that moment. So I want to share something as we approach the hour. I'm proud of each one of you guys for so many different reasons. But I am so proud of each one of you. Each one of you fill me up each week. Each one of you you inspire me to come back one more week. Riddy, close us out. What do you got to say?
I'm going to take a page out of Jeff's book and say thank you. That's all I got to say.
Well, I got chills right now.
And
So
one of the greatest joys of my life, sharing time with you guys. Yep.
So next week, I pulled a fast one on you three here. I did actually send a note in our group feed earlier today, but I was inspired when most of us were still sleeping in the night. I woke up in the middle of the night and I heard a ping, my phone vibrating, and it was a message coming in from Cancun, Mexico, where this beautiful, beautiful soul is on her own journey in this life. And I just felt absolutely pulled to invite her to join us next week on Real Men Real Talk Live. Every once in a while, we'll have a female join us. And it's going to be an absolutely amazing show. The show title is going to be Warrior or Warrior. And she's going to come in and we're going to talk about the power of the mind. This is a woman who is in the throes of a massive, massive healing, mind, body, and soul. She's going to come in from a treatment center where she is overcoming a significant disease that has infiltrated her own body temple. And she's going to share with us, and we're going to share each one of our stories of how our mindset is either a friend or a foe. It's either helped us or hurt us. For next week's episode, I'm so excited, and I am so proud of Kate Malvinen, who I interviewed. I've lost track of time. It may be 4 years ago, 5 years ago, when I was introduced to her, as she was in the throes of, I think her daughter at the time, Annabelle, was maybe 2 years old, diagnosed with terminal cancer, given months to live. And she overcame that. But unfortunately, the disease showed back up in her body. And this time, it had spread like a wildfire, like just spread in Maui. I tell you what, this woman is not dying. She's not dying. She's coming in because she's going to come in and show us, you're going to meet this warrior. And she's going to teach each one of us something about our own mindset. And so next week, tune in, viewers and listeners. Kate Malvinen is going to be joining us on Real
Men.
Real
Talk.
talk.
Live.